The Redmi Note 7 is an affordable mid-range handset that serves up some flagship features. It is an outstanding device for its asking price. The Redmi Note 7 Pro has a 6.3-inch LTPS display with Full HD Plus resolution. The display is extremely crisp and sharp, contrast and dynamic range are pretty good. The colors are punchy without being oversaturated. With the Qualcomm Snapdragon 660 processor combined with 4GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, the Redmi Note 7 sports mid-range power. The Redmi Note 7's dual rear snapper has a 48MP 1.8 aperture primary camera and a 5MP 2.4 aperture depth sensor module, matched with face detection autofocus. As for the 13MP 2.2 aperture selfie camera, daytime shots look good, although dynamic range struggles with backlit scenes. Video is recorded at up to Full HD resolution and captures a superb level of detail, especially in good light. The Redmi Note 7 is an excellent all-rounder. It offers superb value with its solid build, great screen, smooth UI and impressive camera and battery life. Xiaomi Mi A3 smartphone was launched in 7th July 2019. The phone comes with a 6.08-inch touchscreen display with an aspect ratio of 19.5:9. It is powered by a 2GHz octa-core Qualcomm Snapdragon 665 processor. It comes with 4GB of RAM. As far as the cameras are concerned, the Xiaomi Mi A3 on the rear packs a 48MP primary camera with an 1.79 aperture and a second 8MP camera with an 2.2 aperture, and there is also a third 2MP camera. The rear camera setup has autofocus. There is also a 32MP camera on the front for selfies with an 2.0 aperture. This device is based on Android 9.0 and packs 128GB of inbuilt storage that can be expanded via microSD card up to 256GB. It is powered by a 4030mAh battery and supports Quick Charge 3.0 fast charging. Redmi Note 9s have a 6.67-inch LCD screen. The Full HD Plus resolution is pin sharp, with an impressive 91% screen-to-body ratio and a tall 20:9 aspect ratio. The Note 9s is comfortable to hold in one hand. Meanwhile, the phone's carved glossy glass back is an attractive contrast with its matte sides. With Redmi Note 9s, we have moved away from the screen notch seen in previous generations to a new dot drop display. This involves a tiny cutout at the top of the display for selfie camera. Xiaomi's Redmi Note 9s might be a budget phone, but its performance is decidedly mid-range. With the help of the Snapdragon 720G and 4 or 6GB of RAM depending on the variation, you are getting very good performance from this device. Xiaomi Redmi Note 9s comes with 4 rear cameras, which are housed in a big square camera module. The main camera here is 48MP shooter that uses a Samsung image sensor. There is also an 8MP ultra-wide camera, a depth sensor for portrait shots, and a macro camera for close-up photography. You can record 4K video at 30fps and 720p super slow-mo video at 960fps. On the front, you have a 16MP selfie camera. The camera app is generally easy to use and you can swap between standard photo, the 48MP mode, portrait, night, panorama and pro modes. But this being an AI camera, the general idea is to point and shoot. If you are a keen photographer, you won't love this camera phone, but for most people it will easily suffice, and especially at this price. The key selling point of this phone is arguably its battery. This is a massive 5020mAh cell, and given the budget to mid-range hardware inside this phone, it could easily last you up to 2 days depending on your uses. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 8 Pro smartphone was launched in September 2019. The phone comes with a 6.53-inch LCD touchscreen display with an aspect ratio of 19.5:9. It is powered by a MediaTek Helio G90T processor. It comes with 8GB of RAM. As far as the cameras are concerned, the Redmi Note 8 Pro on the rear packs quad camera setup consisting of a 64MP main shooter and a 8MP ultra-wide lens and a 2MP dedicated macro lens along with 5MP depth sensor. There is a 20MP camera on the front for selfies. This device is based on Android 9.0 Pie and packs 128GB of inbuilt storage that can be expanded via microSD card up to 256GB. It is powered by a 4500mAh battery with 18W fast charging support. It was launched in black, red, blue and white colors. Redmi Note 9 Pro is a bulky phone. The front and rear of the Redmi Note 9 Pro are both made using Gorilla Glass 5, while the frame is polycarbonate. The most distinctive feature on the front is of course the new embedded selfie camera, which is centered at the top of the screen. Xiaomi has done well in terms of design, and the Redmi Note 9 Pro does feel fresh without actually changing too much for a phone in this segment. There's the usual USB Type-C port, 3.5mm audio socket and a speaker on the bottom. You get a 6.67-inch Full HD Plus screen which has a tall aspect ratio to accommodate the front camera. It might surprise many fans who follow current trends because it is a standard 60Hz panel and doesn't have a 90Hz refresh rate like some other recently launched devices. This device comes with a Snapdragon 720G chipset. You can get the Redmi Note 9 Pro with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage, or with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. The Redmi Note 9 Pro is more than powerful enough to handle anything from basic calls and messaging all the way up to heavy 3D gaming, and with no trouble whatsoever. The squared-off camera bump on the rear might also surprise some Redmi Note series fans. It is a quad camera setup. The primary shooter has a 48MP resolution with 1.79 aperture. Next to it you will find an 8MP wide-angle camera, which is a pretty standard for this price level. The 2MP depth sensor in the lower row is also basic. What is interesting is the fact that the macro camera has a 5MP resolution. This device comes with an improved night mode, super face detection autofocus, and a color profile optimized for Indian users. Video can be recorded at 4K 30fps or 1080p at 60fps. 720p slow-mo recording goes up to 960fps. One of this phone's primary target audience is video content creators, especially TikTok users, so there's a short video mode with a 15-second cutoff. The front camera has a 16MP resolution. With daytime photos, we found the primary camera to be reasonably good. Close-ups look good and details were clear in foreground subjects. The 5MP macro camera does deliver much higher quality shots than we have seen from most other macro cameras. The front camera is fairly good in daytime as well as at night. As for the battery, it comes with 5020mAh capacity with 18W fast charging support.